Scanning for audio.
Welcome once again to the Tin Dog Podcast. Before I go on to talk about Doctor Who Adventures in Time and Space, the new role-playing game from Cubicle 7, I just want to take this opportunity to thank absolutely everyone who bought a Whostrology just before Christmas. I won't be reading any out this time, because I intend reading them all out at some point. But as some of my Christmas presents, I don't want to spoil anything with just a few days to go. There will be a show released on Christmas Day, but it won't be the review of the end of time. I love podcasting, but there's no way I'm going to be recording a show on Christmas Day. No, the special Christmas episode itself will be me reading a short story of my own writing that isn't particularly Doctor Who based at all. But either way, I hope you enjoy it. But that's a week away. Right now, it's one of the snowiest days I can remember, and I'm going to talk about the Doctor Who role-playing game. Now, I know Tennant leaves in less than 14 days' time, as of recording this message, so anyone releasing a product around now is kind of torn. Do you leave the 10th Doctor on the front, or do you delay your product a few months and then bring it out in the new year with Matt Smith? You've got 4 years of product and design familiarity with your target audience, so perhaps it's good that Cubicle 7 got the go-ahead from the BBC to use on their cover the 10th Doctor, a Cyberman, a Dalek and a Sontaran, and the TARDIS we've become oh so used to of late. The logos and the design are very nice. The brand new BBC logo adorns the left-hand side of the box, and Cubicle 7's rather minimalist logo adorns the right-hand side. Let's talk you through what you get in the box. The box itself is slightly larger than A4. It seems to be made of printed corrugated card, and has the same feel that I got age 12 opening my first red box of D&D. Yes, I'm a role player dating back that far. This isn't the first Doctor Who role-playing game. The first one was designed by a company called FASA. The game was as complex as games were in those days. You could play the Doctor, but usually you played a Gallifreyan, often working for the Celestial Intervention Agency. There were lead figures, almost to the same standard as the Harlequin miniatures a few years ago. And some of my greatest memories of playing Doctor Who as a role-playing game come from the FASA system. It was out about 1984. Just after the end of the McCoy era, another role-playing game came out. This one was called Time Lord and had Sylvester McCoy on the front, or at least something that looked a bit like a zombie Sylvester McCoy. This game was a lot more predictable. It didn't use various exotic dice. The game itself looked a lot more like an ordinary A5 book. In many respects, Time Lord is the midpoint between the complicated FASA system and what we have today with Adventures in Time. I'm sure you can track both of those games down on eBay, but it's the new game that interests me today. So again, what's in the box? The first thing you notice, 6 rather nice, clear dice. The 6-sided variety. 6d6, if you prefer. There are several books. The first one is the Player's Guide, about half an inch thick, filled with the usual nice photographs of companions, containing 4 main chapters. Chapter 1, The Trip of the Lifetime. Chapter 2, The Children of Time. Chapter 3, Alon Z. And Chapter 4, Two Worlds Collide. Basically, the first one is an introduction to Doctor Who, an introduction to role-playing, and a rather pleasant little section detailing why the game uses meters rather than yards. The Children of Time deals with characters, the sort of people who can play, how to create a character, attributes, traits, and so on. Chapter 3 is about running a game, basic rules, conflict, healing, and the like. And Chapter 4, again, how to play role-playing games, and hints and tips. It's exceptionally well written. As a first role-playing game, it's a great place to start, and not particularly complicated. The second book, as is predictable, is the Games Master's Guide. Much more in-depth, much more background, And one section that grabbed me immediately was creating a regenerated doctor, what your doctor would look like. And option 1 in the hair colour option is auburn. So yes, when the doctor says, "Am I ginger?" you really could be. The third book is more of a booklet and is rather a pleasant thing. It deals with plot ideas, concepts, and basic broke-down short stories. Most role-playing games have one scenario when you buy this set, to introduce you and your players to the game. But here we have a handful, something that could really hit the ground running. This game is designed to be played almost immediately out of the box, and yet simultaneously can be as complicated or as intriguing as you want it to be. The contents of the box doesn't end there. There's a small flyer for the Games Master screen, which I'm sure, like me, you'll be making your own, and a book which is due out early on next year, Aliens and Creatures. The universe teems with aliens and creatures beyond imagination. Why do they always say beyond imagination? I've always wondered that sort of thing. They're quite clearly not. This expansion pack brings you all the information you need in the game to bring them to life. As well as these two, I am aware that there's going to be a Defenders of the Earth expansion pack coming out soon, which will deal almost exclusively with Unit, but I'm sure Torchwood and Sarah Jane aren't far behind. Many of the old-fashioned role-playing games, you used to have to copy out painstakingly by hand or try and go to the library and use the photocopier to get character sheets. Here you actually get some with it. Not only do you get a handful of blank character sheets in order for you to create your own, and for that I'll come back later, you actually get some basic character sheets, not of classes like you would get in Dungeons & Dragons or the other similar games like Fighter and Cleric and things like that. No, here we have very basic character beginning sheets, things like students, musicians, medical doctors, as well as a handful of character sheets for characters actually taken from the show. That would be the Doctor, Rose Tyler, Donna Noble, Martha Jones, Captain Jack Harkness, Mickey Smith, Sarah Jane Smith, and of course, K9. Beyond that lies a sheet of gadgets that you can use throughout the story, things like sonic screwdrivers and sonic lipstick and the like. And at the very bottom of the whole box, there is a sheet of small cardboard things. Well, they're called story points, and they are intriguing because they look like the sort of thing you would use in a game of Risk or some other board game. But that's not what they're for here at all. Underneath that, when I unpacked my box, rather oddly, is a sheet that says read this first, in order, if I've lost most of you, to explain a little more about role-playing, and to answer the questions of those people who've said, how does the system work? I'm going to read from this right now. Read this first. How to play. Where's the board? First off, don't worry. There's a good chance that this will be unlike any sort of game you've played before. You've looked through the box, and the first thing you've said is, where's the board? Doctor Who, Adventures in Time and Space, doesn't use a board. The adventures you'll be playing are going to be so huge and varied that no board could ever do them justice. If this is your first game, you don't really need to read those huge books to play. You can just read this, the rules summary on the next couple of pages. Maybe check out the example of play on page 7 of the Player's Guide. Then choose a Games Master. They'll be the one in charge of the game and the story, and the Games Master should read this as well, and read through the first adventure in the Adventures book. How do I play? In the game, the players pretend to be the Doctor and his companions, and the adventure across time and space, stopping alien invasions, putting an end to evil, and experiencing the marvels of the universe. Anything the Doctor has done can be accomplished in this game, and far, far more. Each player takes on the role of a character, whether they are the Doctor and companions that you're familiar with, or new characters of your own devising. It's up to you. One player doesn't take on the role of a character. They take control of the story and help to adjudicate the rules. This person's called the Games Master. The Games Master may have to familiarise themselves with the rules and the plot of the first story, but otherwise you can have a go at playing straight away. And as you get the hang of it, you'll quickly find out you can do just about anything. And the Games Master will quickly be creating new and exciting adventures for the players. There are no winners, no losers. You don't compete with each other. In fact, you all help each other to create the best story and adventure you can. And you have a great game in the process. Fun and excitement for all. Game sessions can last an hour or two or even longer if you really get carried away. Though it helps to have a break every now and then for a cup of tea and something to eat. You see, this is the role-playing game that likes a nice cup of tea. Again, it goes on to explain what a games master is and what you need to play, which is basically these rules, some pencils and some paper. The sheet then goes on to describe the character sheets, where you have attributes, skills, traits, similar in many respects to other RPGs. But remember, these are all paper-based. This is not on computer, although I'm sure people will be playing on Skype in real time. Attributes. There are 6 attributes: awareness, coordination, ingenuity, presence, resolve, and strength. Each attribute has a value ranging from 1 to 6, though some alien characters may go higher. The higher the number, the better they are. Skills. There are 12 skills. This is what the character has learned abilities, whether they know about history, law, science, medicine, gadgets, technology, or how to drive or fix a TV, or carve a boat. These skills have numbers next to them, just like attributes. The higher the number, the better. Finally, traits. Traits are listed nearby, and they give the character a little flavour and sets them apart from each other. This sheet then leads into doing stuff. Doctor Who Adventures in Time and Space uses the same basic rules for all actions, whether it is fighting, out-talking, research, creating some pseudo-scientific device, or piloting the TARDIS. It's all the same basic rules. The basic rule is attribute plus skill plus 2 6-sided dice equals result. You try to match or beat the difficulty of the task. And that's it. That's how the system works. So all of those people have been messaging me, asking me how things work. The only point worth mentioning is story points. These are the little tokens which are in the back of the box. You get given a certain amount of these, as allocated by the Games Master at the beginning of the game. You use these tokens to buy extra dice rolls to help you in moments of stress or when you need them. It's a very, very nice and elegant system, something I'm very fond of, and I do look forward to playing it at some point. Only then will the true nature of the game come to fore. But looking at this set, it's well worth spending your hard-earned money. So perhaps in the new year, when you're waiting for Matt to come along, you can nip to the shops or mail order this particularly lovely piece of merchandise, and you can play the games for the stories you've always thought, what happens if the original Cybermen meets the new Cybermen? Or why couldn't I have Doctors 9, 10 and 11 all meeting Doctor 8 in order to defeat him to bring about the end of the Time War? Hell, you could do the entire Time War, because there's nobody telling you not to, and everybody's Time War is going to be different. Now, I know people who play D&D have a certain reluctance to play certain aspects of this game, because when you're playing games like that, you start as a very low, weak character, and you spend years building them and working on them until they become very powerful. But here, the emphasis, like several other role-playing games, is on storytelling, is on characterization, and that is what separates Doctor Who from others. There's no reason for you just to stick with the post-Time War world that this game seems to be set in. There are little boxes throughout the manuals that hint heavily that you really should be considering playing at various points when, say, the other Time Lords were around. You don't have to have the Doctor in your group. You don't have to play these things. Everyone could be a member of Torchwood. Everyone could be a member of practically anything you want. The infinite nature that is Doctor Who's storytelling is yours to play with. And that's something I'm very pleased about with this game. It's been a while since I've discussed anything by Big Finish, and that's a massive oversight on my part. There's been some great developments of late. Particularly worthy of note are 2 stories set in Blackpool, which I'll be talking about quite shortly. The last ever Sheridan Smith and the Eighth Doctor story set in Blackpool, as well as The Lost Stories with the Sixth Doctor, also set in Blackpool. But set somewhere after Sheridan Smith's final story is a lone Eighth Doctor story direct from Big Finish and available this Christmas, called An Earthly Child. Not, as some people may have heard, An Unearthly Child. No, this is something much, much better. The Eighth Doctor answers a distress call from Earth, from his granddaughter, Susan. Susan has a child, the Doctor's great-grandson, played by Paul McGann's own son. And perhaps it's a little incestuous in casting, but it's so good to hear Caroline Ford playing with a Doctor, if not necessarily hers. By its very nature of narrative, it is set sometime after the Daleks' invasion of Earth, after her husband has died. but obviously before the events of the Time War. So whether Susan leaves Earth and travels back to Gallifrey or not, that you can find out for yourself. But because this story is so heavily influenced by events happening in 1966, that did limit the storyteller's art. Perhaps it feels a little constrained. The aliens themselves actually do sound mechanical and almost poetically like a plot device. This has been used to their advantage, and it is a very nice, if short, story. It's also one of those stories that you can't talk about too much without giving too much away. So here's the trailer.
Available now to Big Finish subscribers. An Earthly Child.
I came out here to watch the moon. There, another flash.
Lunar base?
And again. They're busy tonight. I wonder what they're saying.
Freedom for students! Freedom for students!
This is Susan Campbell on the planet Earth. Help is required.
There are no aliens. Not for 20 years.
Apart from the slithers.
I hear you, Susan.
I'm the Doctor. Pleased to meet you.
Oh, you're new. Sorry. And the Daleks will be laughing.
Mrs. Campbell is talking sense. The rest of you could at least listen.
His voice. There was something about it. I thought I recognized...
Give your full name and planetary origin.
You have stolen my property, my TARDIS, and I want it back.
My name is Hope.
Susan was always rash, but this time she's talking a lot of sense.
Help from a load of filthy murdering aliens. That's what she said.
And now they've come back.
It's time to leave, Doctor.
There are always aliens, Alex. Some of them never go away.
What's that supposed to mean?
Police! Get out now!
Run, Holly! Ah! Get off me!
Technology was thrown back 200 years. And since then, crops have failed, civil unrest is growing. We're still finding people hiding in caves.
Fire at that thing! Bring it down!
Stop shooting!
This one for requisition.
But you can't be. Can you?
Can't I, Susan?
But is it you?
Subscribers get more at bigfinish.com.
And so with that, I'll bid you farewell and say Merry Christmas. Shortly I'll be talking about the long game, about 2 trips for the Third Doctor's made to Peladon just before those DVDs come out. Oh, by the way, it looks like the Peladon story box set is coming out on the 18th of January rather than the 4th. So perhaps it's best if you save some of that Christmas money and perhaps even spend it on the RPG and save up some more for that lovely Peladon box set later on. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening to the Tin Dog Podcast and say Merry Christmas and be seeing you. You have been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Contact us at tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk.